Hi, I'm Shawnee and I like girls and I also like guys. I'm bisexual. This is my coming out story. Okay, so I'm a little nervous. This is my first time ever talking about this on YouTube. It's pretty intimidating. Even though I'm just looking at a camera right now, you are a person watching this and people are gonna watch this, so that's kind of scary, but I'm doing this anyway. It is Pride Month and I am super proud of who I am, so I figured now would be the perfect time to make this video. So I want to start off by saying I'm one of those people that truly didn't know I was queer until like way later in life. And by later in life, I mean very recently. I spent most of my life thinking I was straight. I truly thought that. So I'm 26 years old now and I came out to myself, which is like the first thing. I came out to myself when I was 25 in fall of 2019. So when I'm filming this, it's June 2020. So it really took me until I was 25 years old to figure out that I like girls. I have a few theories on that. I think the reason it took me so long to realize this is because of a few things. One, my religious upbringing, which I'm going to get into in this video, and basically having no idea that gay people existed for most of my childhood. Also, I grew up with pretty extreme social anxiety, so I definitely didn't start doing things like dating until I was in my 20s. So lack of experience and lack of putting myself out there, I think, is another reason why I didn't realize this sooner. All of that being said, there were signs, few and far between. Let's start at the beginning. I was raised Christian. My mom is more into the heavy religion. My dad is less into the religion, but he's also spiritual. So we went to church multiple times a week. We went to church on Sunday as a family, and then I was in the youth group, and that met like once a week too. I went to church camp every summer. We had like small group leaders and we hung out with them like throughout the week. So religion was a huge part of my life in like middle school and high school. And I was fully into it myself. Like I believed in everything at the time. I prayed regularly. I read the Bible. I like wanted to be a good Christian. I was a really good girl, like a goody two shoes. I shouldn't say that about myself, but I was. I always wanted to like do better and like do everything I was supposed to do, and I tried not to sin. In my church, like our youth pastor had all these rules, like they weren't strict rules, but they were rules that he thought we should be following. Like they didn't really think that we should be dating in high school. My youth pastor at the time, he's kind of famous now. I don't know if I should say who he is, but anyway, he even wrote a whole entire book on dating. He went as far as to say in that book that we shouldn't even be holding hands. No sex until you're married, and don't kiss each other, don't touch each other. That's the kind of mindset that I had at the time, and that's the kind of world that I was growing up in. So the word gay or lesbian or like gay people or gayness or anything like that was not a part of my childhood. So my earliest memory of gayness, if I try really hard to remember, it's when I was in elementary school and a promo for the L word came on TV, and I somehow just automatically knew that it was taboo and that I wouldn't be allowed to watch it. The words gay or lesbian were definitely taboo in my household. I could probably count on one hand the amount of times I heard either of those words like before high school. It was like next to 0 times, I think. In 9th grade, I was in choir and I went to this huge high school, and so I was in choir and we went on a choir retreat, and on that choir retreat our choir teacher came out to us. It was a small group of us. We spent the nights kind of hanging out in the cabins, and she got kind of close with us, I guess. Like she felt kind of like a friend to a lot of the people in the choir. She was really cool. So she came out to us one night during this retreat, and it got super emotional, and she like started crying and everything. And so a lot of people in that choir then like came out and said that they were gay too. And I remember being there. So I was in 9th grade, and like I said, gayness was no part of my life at all. I knew nothing about it. I had no exposure at all. So I feel like that moment was my first exposure. And so I kind of freaked out inside, and I started feeling really uncomfortable, and I kind of freaked out. I remember getting home and going to my parents and being like, Mom and dad, like our choir teacher came out and she said she's a lesbian, and it was so weird. And I remember just like telling them how weird it was to me. My mother is definitely anti-gay, so she was like, yeah, it is weird and she shouldn't have done that, and why is she bringing this up with you guys as students? And I don't really remember what my dad said about it, but yeah, so that happened. I feel like that was like my first big experience with queerness. Another memory that stands out to me is one time we were at a church conference. A pastor, I don't even remember what he said, but he said something that was anti-gay. Basically the next day, our home church pastor made this guest pastor who had said something anti-gay, he made him get back up on stage and apologize to everyone. That moment stood out to me. Also, kudos to my pastor at the time for making him get up and apologize. Okay, so now I want to talk about gayness becoming normalized for me and even celebrated. After 9th grade, I did not like my high school in 9th grade. It just didn't feel like the right environment for me, so I tried online school, that didn't work. Then I switched to, I found this other school that I really loved because it was small, only 300 students. It was like an artsy school. You got to like shape your education. It was perfect for independent people. I was independent. It's perfect for creative kids. I was super creative. So I lived in Seattle. It's called Nova High School. So to get into this school, you had to have a meeting with the principal. So my parents and I went to this meeting. He basically gave us a rundown of how the school worked. But one thing he said at the meeting was, a lot of our students are gay and they come to our school because our school is a safe space. A lot of them were bullied at other schools and things like that. He basically said, if you want to go here, you have to be okay with that. I was like, yeah, I'm okay with that. I don't know what changed between like the incident I told you about at choir and then. So I was in 10th grade at this point. I don't know what changed between then and like at that point, but I was like, yeah, I'm okay with that. It was literally whatever to me. I really didn't care. Of course, my mom did not like that at all. My dad was neutral, but I really wanted to go to that school, so I ended up going. So at that school, gayness was celebrated, being different was celebrated, being unique was celebrated. First of all, I loved that school so much. It's still so dear to my heart. Yeah, so there were a lot of gay couples there, and I remember seeing them in the hallway all the time and thinking, oh my god, they're so adorable. So I was still a Christian at this time. So a few other girls from my church ended up coming to this same art school too. So I remember one time, me and like those other girls, we were at church, and we asked one of our leaders, is it okay to be gay? Because I guess we were just curious, like, is it? Because like I said, I always wanted to be a good Christian and do the right thing, but then now I was in this world, like at this high school where gayness was celebrated and it was everywhere, and I had decided at that point that I was totally okay with it, loved it even, thought it was wonderful. We brought this up with our leader, and I remember her saying something like, you can love someone and not agree with their behavior. We can love gay people, but what they're doing is not right, and blah, 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 blah. The Bible says this. So that was that. So while going to this high school, I had my first crush on a girl. Knowing everything I've said so far about who I was and my upbringing, I just never thought I could be gay. There was this girl, and she was kind of a tomboy, and I remember feeling like it just wasn't possible that I could possibly have a crush on a girl. I remember thinking all these things like, it's not possible, this can't be a crush, just thinking I can't possibly really have a crush on her. But looking back, of course I did. So then for a while after that, I started questioning my sexuality, like for the first time. I started wondering if I might like girls. So that was a long time ago, so I don't really remember what happened to make me stop questioning it, but I remember that I did stop, and I decided that I was definitely straight, and I kind of put that thought aside. Fast forward again to about 2 years ago, I started questioning my sexuality again. I don't remember why or what started this. I just remember that I did. I truly thought I was straight. I truly thought that. Okay, but so 2 years ago when I was 24, I started questioning again. One main memory I have of like the beginning of the questioning was, so I went to Planned Parenthood. They ask you all these questions about like who your partners are, and they asked the question of, do you only date men? Do you only date women? Or no, they asked something like, are you interested in men? Are you interested in women? Or both? Yeah, maybe that was the beginning. I don't know, but like I remember thinking, and it didn't feel right for me to answer I'm only interested in men. It just didn't feel right for some reason. And so I said both. And that felt more right to me. And that was kind of the beginning of me going on this journey of trying to figure out my sexuality and just trying to figure out myself. It basically sent me down the am I gay road, which a lot of you have probably been down. Some of you are probably like on that road right now. And so, you know, I did like all the online quizzes, like the Am I Gay online quizzes. I did so much over analyzing in my head of like looking back at my childhood and looking back at my life and just like trying to think like what's going on, like am I gay or not? I remember changing my Tinder preferences to girls, but then being too scared to even swipe right. Like, I knew I had a crush on Halsey, but I just couldn't figure out if I was queer or not. But I was leaning towards, yeah, I think I'm queer. Then one day, I met a girl. Oh my god. I'm gonna try and tell this story in the most vague way possible. But so, I was working, and I met a girl, and like I got home after meeting her, and I realized, like once I got home, that I had a crush on her. That was probably the first moment that I'd ever had a crush on a girl that I met in real life, where I immediately knew it was a crush and I immediately recognized it as a crush. Because, okay, for me personally, and I've been reading about this online because just reading about things like this just fascinates me, but I'm not the only one, but like for me, crushes on girls feel different than crushes on guys. Like they just feel kind of different. So like I went to follow this girl on Instagram and I saw that she was already following me, and I remember that making me like way too happy, and that's another thing that reiterated like, yeah, I definitely have a crush on her. Okay, so me and this girl had mutual friends, and we ended up running into each other like one night at this event. It was at a bar. So when I saw her again, I remember just thinking, oh my god, she's so pretty. Like I literally almost couldn't stop staring. Long story short, all of our mutual friends left that night, but the two of us stayed. We ended up hanging out for a while, like for a long time. So I remember like as we were hanging out thinking, okay, maybe she likes girls. No, I don't think so. Oh, maybe she does. Because like when you're queer and you like someone but you're not even sure if they're gay, there's like this thing that you have to do where you're just trying to pick up on like cues and things they're doing and saying to even figure that out. And so that's what I was doing, and I kept going back and forth like, okay, she's not gay, because I was like, okay, we're just hanging out as friends. But then I kept going back and forth like, okay, maybe we're not just hanging out as friends. But I was obviously hoping that we weren't just hanging out as friends, because this is so awkward right now for me to tell this story. Let me not be awkward right now. Let me stop. So long story short, we ended up making out. That kiss that night was the moment I knew 100,000% that I like girls. People talk about their gay awakening or whatever, and that was mine. That kiss with that girl was unlike any kiss I'd ever had in my life. It was like fireworks, magical, the kind of thing you read about in fairy tales or watch in movies. And yeah, I'd never really had a kiss that made me feel all of those things, I don't think. And so, you know, that would be a big moment for anyone. You spend a long time, years sometimes longer, like sometimes your whole life, you know. I didn't spend my whole life, but I'd spent a long time wondering, and that was the moment when I knew for sure. I remember getting home that night, and I was standing in my kitchen, and I couldn't stop smiling. I just felt so happy, and I remember telling myself, don't ever forget this moment, and don't ever forget how you feel right now. And if I ever were to question in the future, am I gay? I was like, no, don't ever question that again. Do not ever question it again. Don't ever forget how you feel right now in this moment. So after that, it was almost like something clicked in my head, and I was kind of like seeing girls in a new light, and I was kind of like only interested in girls at that point. Like I was kind of talking to a guy at the time, and my interest in him kind of like completely went away. Like I was not interested in guys at all. I was just super interested in girls. And I remember I changed my Tinder preferences to women only, and this was around the time when I kind of started to, so I still was questioning everything, like, because I was trying to figure out, am I a lesbian? And there was a period of time where I really thought I was, because after that night, guys just felt so irrelevant to me, if I'm being honest. So this, of course, led me down another road of overanalyzing things, and I started looking back at every situation I'd ever been in with a guy. I tried to overanalyze it and think like, how did I really feel in that situation when I was with that guy, and were those feelings real, or how did I feel with him compared to how I feel when I'm with a girl? I realized, you know, over time, I'm not a lesbian, I'm bisexual. I do like girls, but I also like guys. The past experiences that I had with guys were valid. They were real, my feelings for them were real in those moments. It's just hard when you're trying to figure everything out, and you're trying to look at everything that you've been through and everything that's happened, and you're like trying to at times find a label. Not that everyone needs a label, but like you're just trying to figure everything out. My experiences with the guys that I had experiences with in the past were all valid. There was nothing fake about those experiences. It would have been easier for me to understand myself, maybe, if all those experiences with guys I'd had in the past were all terrible and they were all, you know, fake and there were no feelings there, but that just wasn't the case. I remember during this time when I was questioning if I might be a lesbian, I was in an elevator and a guy came into the elevator. He started talking to me, and I suddenly felt that feeling that you feel when you're into a guy. And it was so funny. It was just a super small moment, but I felt like attraction to a man, and I was like, oh shit, okay, I'm not a lesbian, I'm bisexual. Or I didn't put the label bisexual on it then. I was more using just queer, or just I was using no label at the time, like with myself in my head. I didn't feel comfortable with a label because I was still trying to figure everything out. But in that moment I was like, oh shit, okay, this is a guy and I'm attracted to this person right here standing in front of me. He's not a woman, but I'm also attracted to women, so okay. This is the time where I kind of dove into like the gay world or whatever. First, I need to say, so after this like amazing night I had with this girl, I remember feeling like this really lonely feeling, because so this great and really cool and like kind of life-changing thing happened to me, right? I couldn't talk to a single person about it, and that was really hard and really lonely. And like the next day after it happened, like this dawned on me, oh my god, I can't even tell anyone about this, because no one knew that I liked girls. Like I hadn't brought that up with anyone yet. This amazing thing had happened and I couldn't talk to anyone about it, and that was really, really, really hard. And that was one of the loneliest feelings ever. I had to live in those feelings for weeks and months. Usually when something happens, two of the first people I want to tell are my parents. And I couldn't tell them, and I remember a lot of moments happened where I came really close to telling them, and I remember I kept going back and forth in my head like, I'm just gonna tell them. But then I just kept stopping myself like, no, you cannot tell them this. It's not the right time, and you can't tell them. It's gonna change how they see you as your daughter, and it's just gonna change everything if they know this about me. I kept going back and forth, but I dove into the gay world without telling anyone in my life. So without telling my parents or my siblings or my friends. I started going to like queer events around LA. There are so many of those here. I started meeting other queer people, putting myself out there, but I was going to all these things by myself, and that was super duper intimidating. Yeah, I just kind of started diving into that world. It's really hard to remember the timeline of things, but it was still fall when I came out to my siblings, because I came out to my siblings on Thanksgiving, actually, of 2019. So I came out to a few friends before coming out to my siblings, like around the time that my birthday happened, so when I turned 26. And then I came out to my parents. That was the scariest night of my life, by the way. The scariest, hands down scariest thing I've ever done in my life was coming out to my parents. And I did that a few days before New Year's. And I filmed myself coming out to my parents because, so that I could share it with you. And that video is going to be coming soon. Editing it is going to be hard because it was a very emotional night and it was a very difficult night. It's very difficult for me. I remember before coming out to them, I watched a bunch of videos of people who did the same, you know, filmed themselves coming out to their parents, and that was one of the things that gave me courage to do it. But that was hands down the scariest thing I've ever done. I'm going to also make an entire video just on like what it was like coming out to everyone in my life. So like friends and my siblings, I'm gonna make a different video on that. Right after I came out to my parents, like the next day, I came out on Instagram. I wanted to do that for a while. Like I just wanted to be fully myself, like online for a long time. I got a bunch of messages of support. I got some phone calls of support. I got a lot of support. I didn't get any hate, which I'm extremely lucky for. I know that I'm extremely lucky. Like, trust me, I was not expecting that. I was expecting some negativity for sure, and it didn't happen. I feel like I'm jinxing it right now as we speak. Don't leave hate in my comments of this video. Don't do that. I'll just delete it. So that was my coming out story. I haven't been out for very long. I came out, like I said, publicly in January of this year, and it's June now, so it's been about 6 months, I guess. Wow, the year went by really, well, this year's been crazy, but wow, it really flew by. It's really flying by. Yeah, so I'm like still on this journey. I'm still growing, I'm still becoming, but that is my story up until now, and I did want to share it. I'm bisexual and super proud of it. And yeah, I do want to say that I am no longer religious. I left that religion, Christianity. I left it like around when I started going to my community college back in Seattle. So I think I was like 19 when I realized that Christianity was not for me. And honestly, looking back, I say thank God I realized it wasn't for me, because I have so many issues with it. Now looking back, I have so many issues with it. And so I'm just really glad that I saw the light and got out of that religion. I'm so sorry. I'm not trying to offend you if that is your religion. I'm truly not. I just personally have issues with it. This is coming from someone who grew up in the religion and in the church. I have a lot of issues, and I am no longer a part of it at all whatsoever. I just wanted to put that in this video since I did mention that that's how I was raised. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm here and I'm queer. And do you guys like my shirt? I got this from Target. Hit the like button and subscribe if you want to see more from me. And I will see you again very soon.